Welcome to the 700 Club. For today's top headlines, let's go over to the CBN News Desk.
Gordon, the death toll from the coronavirus has now crossed 500,000, and the number of cases in the U.S. is still climbing, especially in the southern part of the country. So state leaders are taking action to slow the virus down. Dale Hurd has the story.
With the number of new cases of COVID-19 still high, almost 39,000 reported Sunday, at least a dozen cities and states have decided to roll back their reopenings. Florida has banned bars from serving customers, and Broward County and Miami-Dade have closed beaches ahead of the Independence Day festivities.
We burned through 90% of our savings during the first shutdown, keeping this place alive. And it's just, at what point will this end?
Masks are now mandatory in Pensacola. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis blames the continued spread on the social activities of young people.
You're seeing it in those groups who are less at risk, but you're seeing them test positive at much higher rates.
California, in a reversal, is shutting down bars in Los Angeles and several other counties, just 1 week after LA bars had reopened from the lockdown.
We're seeing more younger patients who are getting admitted to the hospital. People are not wearing masks as much as they were before.
Mr. Vice President, welcome to First Baptist Dallas.
In Texas, which is seeing more than 5,000 new cases a day, Vice President Mike Pence wore a mask part of the time at Robert Jeffress's 14,000-member First Baptist Church, and at another event encouraged a crowd of over 2,000 to do the same.
Wearing a mask is just a good idea. And it will, we know from experience, will slow the spread of the coronavirus.
Many of the new cases in Texas are reported to be people who attended protests against the death of George Floyd. Cases have also gone up in Nevada less than a month after Las Vegas casinos opened. Appearing on Meet the Press, Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar said the death rate and hospitalization rates were the lowest in 2 months, but also called this a very serious situation and said Americans had to take action to slow the spread of the disease.
The window is closing. We have to act, and people as individuals have to act responsibly. We need to social distance. We need to wear our face coverings.
Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Our CBN News medical reporter Lori Johnson is here with more on the surge in coronavirus cases. So, Lori, the number of cases is rising in several states. What about the death rate?
Well, the bright spot in all of this, Ephraim, is that the death rate is actually much lower. So that's good news. And we're also seeing fairly good news on the hospitalization front. Remember, when this all first started, the main concern was not overwhelming our healthcare industry. The hospitals we saw in Italy, where patients were being rationed with care, particularly ventilators, and we're not seeing that all in the United States. We're getting a little too close for comfort in some areas, such as in Houston. But really, Ephraim, we shouldn't have a false sense of security, because it's only a matter of time, according to the health experts, when the spread from these young, healthy people, which is the majority of the new cases that we're seeing, it's only a matter of time until that reaches people who are most vulnerable, who are at highest risk of dying. We're talking about people over the age of 60 with these underlying health conditions like diabetes, heart disease, obesity, also lung disease. And so people who are at risk, we need to be very careful about the people they're interacting with, because we know that almost half of the cases are asymptomatic.
Remind us, where are the places where the virus can spread the most?
Inside, mostly. This is a very contagious disease, and we're seeing that a lot of spread in bars and inside close contact, which is, again, we know that masks work. We know that social distancing works. So when you're inside in close contact, particularly if there are a lot of people, those are the highest risk situations.
For a long time now, we thought the heat might slow the virus down. Is that not happening?
It is and it isn't. We know for a fact, a scientific fact, that ultraviolet radiation, like the kind from the sun, and also humidity, does kill the virus very rapidly. But you're seeing people going to beaches and then they go inside to bars, a dark bar that's air conditioned, standing really close, not masked, and people say, well, wait, I went to the beach and I got coronavirus. That's how. And we know that in shady places, talking about, gatherings at night. So the ultraviolet radiation and the humidity isn't always there, even in the summer. But we do also know that this coronavirus is extremely contagious.
How much does the virus spread in the coming months depend on what we're doing?
100%. We know that we have 125 deaths so far, one of the most reliable models, and we know that the models aren't always reliable, but one of the most reliable models says that we're looking at 180,000 deaths by October 1st. So we need to bring that number down. And again, masks work. Social distancing works. We've got to wash our hands and do all those things that we did from the very beginning. A lot of folks, when we see the gradual reopenings, have this sense that, oh, it's over, it's behind us, and it really isn't. We need to stay vigilant, and it's really hard when we see some people doing it and other people not doing it.
Before we let you go, many still surprised at the spread among young people. Why are we seeing that now, you think?
Yeah, and it's really strange. Also, we saw a 17-year-old die in Florida, so young people are not immune. We see the vast majority of serious cases in older people, but it's these underlying causes, Ephraim. And again, obesity is one of those underlying causes, and diabetes, asthma, and things like that we do see in young people, which makes them at greater risk. So really, no one is immune from this, not even young people, but the majority of people are older.
All right, let's pray for that vaccine to come quickly. Indeed. Medical reporter Lori Johnson, thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated. President Donald Trump denies he was made aware of a U.S. intelligence report that Russia was secretly offering bounties to militants linked to the Taliban for killing American troops in Afghanistan. The New York Times reported the story, saying the president was briefed on the finding, and military officials confirmed it to other news outlets. But there were conflicting reports about whether the president was ever told. And the president tweeted late Sunday, "Intel just reported to me that they did not find this info credible and therefore did not report it to me or the vice president. Possibly another fabricated Russia hoax." That response coming after both Republicans and Democrats in Congress said they wanted answers, and others also raised questions.
This is as bad as it gets.
If it is true, underline the word if, that they are paying surrogates to kill Americans, this is one of the most serious matters, I think, that has arisen in the Trump administration.
But former acting director of national intelligence Richard Grenell supported the president, tweeting, "I never heard this, and that leaks of partial information to reporters from anonymous sources is dangerous." Russia called the report nonsense. A federal judge has told New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo and New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio they can't put severe limits on how many people can gather at worship services to prevent the spread of COVID-19, while at the same time approving huge crowds at mass protests over racial injustice. Senior U.S. District Judge Gary Sharp ruled Cuomo and de Blasio sent a clear message: the protests deserve preferential treatment. Thomas More Society's senior counsel Christopher Ferreira told CBN News what the ruling means for religious groups in New York.
The immediate effect as to these plaintiffs is that they're relieved of these indoor restrictions at 25%. The restriction should be 50%, as with comparable businesses. And they're relieved of any outdoor gathering limitations. There is no outdoor gathering limitation any longer. They need only practice social distancing.
Ferrer said the decision was an important step to limiting the trend of exercising absolute monarchy on the pretext of public health. A warning to Americans: you can lose your country, and that alarm comes from an unusual source, a Venezuelan activist. Venezuela has been devastated by socialism, even though it was once the most stable democracy and richest country in Latin America. Elizabeth Rogliani Otolo posted her warning online.
Why do I even worry about some silly little statues coming down or some silly little street names changing? Why do I care? It's because the last time I didn't care about this, I was a teenager. I have already lived through this thing when I was living in Venezuela. Statues came down. Chavez didn't want that history displayed. And then he changed the street names. Then came the curriculum. Then some movies couldn't be shown on certain TV channels. And so on and so forth. You guys think it can't happen to you? I've heard this so many times. But always be on guard. Never believe something can't happen to you. You need to guard your country and your society, or it will be destroyed. We didn't believe it could happen to us. Us Venezuelans, Cubans warned us. And we're like, Venezuela, we know what freedom is like. That's not going to happen here. Yet it happened. And there's clearly a lot of people wanting to destroy the U.S.
And that warning has gained a wide viewership online with more than 1 million views.